the title of my talk is The Lost Art of Fixing Things. And the reason I'm here to talk to you is to get you to think about all of those gadgets, all the things, and Ollie just mentioned, that we use to communicate, to have fun, like with the drones, or with, to invent new apps, to get online. Electronic waste is one of the fastest growing waste streams. And we have a pretty big problem. How many of you have a broken gadget in your desk, in a drawer, in a closet somewhere at home? Raise your hand. All right, pretty much everybody. How many here have fixed one of those broken gadgets with their own hands? All right, very good. You guys are already sold on it. I'm here to ask you to think about fixing stuff and using it for longer, okay? But first, let me tell you who I am. I am not a technologist. I, at your age, became a human rights activist. I got really interested in people's problems around the world. I studied social sciences. I got pulled into humanitarian work, working on human rights. I worked for the UN, and I'm the kind of person I get bored and disillusioned really quickly, so I tried to study anthropology. And what I realized is what I really like to do is communicate and provoke people. So that's why I'm here today. And I started an organization with a friend of mine called the Restart Project to precisely provoke people on this issue of electronic waste and the way that we use electronics. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions, because as I said, I'm here to provoke. What is the internet made of? Just shout out. What is the internet made of? Cheese? No, not cheese. Data, okay. But physically, is it a cloud? Servers? I heard the word servers. Wires, very good. Okay, so in talking to kids especially because some of our first exposure to the internet is through wireless gadgets, right? Through mobile internet. A lot of kids don't have a notion of the internet as a thing. But okay, think about it. If you have internet at home, there's a little blinking thing there, right? It's called a router. And it is attached to a gigantic network of wires, cables, and servers. Somebody mentioned servers. Has anyone seen this before? This is the submarine cable map. This is essentially the way the internet is delivered across the world. And it's really interesting. Some of these same lines were the lines that the telegraph over 100 years ago was laid on. Now, if you look, I don't know if you guys heard, but yesterday there was a massive cyber attack against a small West African country, Liberia. And if you can pick it out on the map, you can see that it's only connected by one cable. So the internet is actually a thing. And it's a thing which we need to pay much more attention to. It's often very invisible to us. All we have at home is that router. But we also have a mobile in the pocket. So when you're doing your searches, when you're using Google products, this is actually what you're using, not just your phone, okay? Can anyone guess what those big tanks are doing? Cooling, very good, although I think that was not a student that said that, but very good. They're cooling. And same kind of thing. What are they cooling? There you go. Okay, stacks and stacks and stacks of servers of basically computing power, which gets hot. Does anyone have that experience of having your lap get really hot when you use a laptop? There you go. That's what happens in these massive centers, right? You've got all these computers in there. They run really hot, and they've got to be cooled down. They've also got to be repaired. So these images are all care of Google, and this is somebody just literally going in and replacing a faulty server. So this is the invisible part of technology that we don't really get exposed to. So, you know, we hear a lot about climate change, and we hear a lot of concern about energy and transport and food, But we don't actually hear too much about the footprint of the internet and all of the gadgets that we use. And I've looked, I don't think there's any definitive figure on this, but the estimates are around this, that the internet and all of the gadgets, all those little handheld things and computers that we use to get on it, the carbon footprint of those is actually larger than air travel. If not, it will be, or it is almost already larger than air travel. So a lot of us are told that we need to be careful in flying. There's the big battle over Heathrow, right, here in London. And yet, very few people are thinking about this. And so when I started learning more about this, I was also quite shocked myself, because I'd been concerned about the heap of electronic waste, right? I'd seen WALL-E. You know, I'd start to think about that gigantic heap of waste, but I hadn't actually thought about all of the emissions and energy that's going into the things we use before we even dump them. So Apple gets criticized a lot because it's like a big, it's like a big target, right? Everyone wants to criticize them, but Apple's actually quite interesting because they do release environmental product reports. They do tell us about the impact of their gadgets. So this is quite interesting. This is a pie chart. It doesn't look so much like a pie. Maybe we call it a ring chart. But what it does go to show is that over 80% of the emissions of a phone are in the manufacture stage before you even buy it at the store. And so the implication of that is quite profound. What it means is, no matter how clean your energy source is right here when you plug in, you need to use that phone for longer to reduce its environmental impact. Now, Apple's not telling us that, and very few people are actually thinking about this. Why is it that we need a new phone every year? This was the first year I heard a lot of people questioning iPhone 7, the Pixel, what's it? This year Samsung's phone exploded. So there were some people questioning, why is it that we need a new one every year? And I think it's really important that we start to think about the cumulative impact. So that 80 kilos of carbon in your iPhone, it's not actually that big. But if you multiply that by 1.9 billion mobiles that were sold last year in the world, you get a carbon footprint that's about equal to, in our estimates, because not everyone has iPhones, our estimates are that the global footprint of mobiles is about the footprint of Austria, the annual footprint of Austria, of a whole rich country in Europe. So we really need to start thinking about the speed at which we're consuming things and the impact that they have. And obviously that impact, that carbon is not going up here in the UK, it's going up where they're manufactured in China, but it's a global problem and we're a part of it. If you're interested, it's not just carbon that we should be thinking about. Friends of the Earth estimates that 13 tons of water go into the manufacture of every smartphone. So does anyone have any ideas about where that water, how that water is being used? How? Yes, that's one. And another one? Okay, yeah, cooling, heating and cooling in factories. It's actually that when you make a chip, you have to rinse it. There's a huge amount of rinsing that goes on with any kind of computer chips. And a lot of companies are getting better at recouping this water, but it's a huge, huge thing. The water footprint attached to any device as well. And then somebody mentioned mining. Very good. This is what is called a rare earth mineral process. Basically, this is the amount of water and kind of environmental havoc that is involved in mining what are called rare earth minerals. And they're actually, it's a bit of a misnomer because they're not that rare. They're just very environmentally intensive in the way that they're mined. This is in China, and I recommend looking at this photo essay. That's Unknown Fields Division on BBC. Also, a lot of attention has been given to conflict minerals. So a lot of these rare earth minerals are taken from places that are experiencing conflict. And this is really important for us to track, and there's been a lot of attention to this in the media. Recently, there have been a couple of really good exposés. And there are very few people, very few companies doing really good work on this, but there are. And the thing that's most important to remember about these rare earth minerals, here's a chart of the recyclability of the elements in your mobile. So when you take your mobile to be recycled, and you should, not everything can be recouped. They're literally put into a shredder, and a lot of the minerals can be recycled. So anything green there, over 50% of it can be recouped. But anything that's orange on that chart, on this periodic table, which currently includes lithium and tantalum, 73, one of those rare earths, those really cannot be recouped still. The processes are still not very good. In fact, it's much less than 25% in the case of the rare earths. So this is something that when people tell you to recycle, yes, that's really important, but recycling can't really save us in all of this. So what we like to tell people is use things for longer, and we can reduce their environmental impact. Learn more about supply chains and the way things are made, and tell the companies that you buy from that you're interested in that. And fix. Okay, so we've been throwing community repair events or repair parties, restart parties, in London for a couple of years now. And what we find is that every community has the skills to fix. Everybody, every street has somebody who knows how to fix stuff. Even the fiddly, miniaturized, annoying electronics you wouldn't believe. There are people who not only know how to do it, but they love to do it, and they love to share, they love to tinker. And what I've noticed in working with a school, high school in New York that just came to us and wanted to start fixing is that schools also have the abilities. Kids have the abilities. Does anyone know someone in their school who fixes mobiles, who helps somebody else fix their mobiles? Replace screens? Anyone? Yeah, I bet almost every school, there's a couple kids who like to help other people fix. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to ignite this ethos of fixing and more conscientious use of electronics in schools. And if anyone is interested in getting involved or helping out, we're putting together a group of student leaders online where we can come together and basically create a campaign and provide activities and campaigning materials for students to get more involved. So I'd love to hear from you if you have ideas for us or if you'd like to get involved. Thank you very much.